The 4 years from Yuan to Zhengzheng, AD 1344, came. At the beginning of this year, the heads of the Yuan Empire received 2 news. First, the Yellow River flooded, and hundreds of thousands of people along the coast of Shandong and Hunan became refugees. Even if you don't treat the common people as human beings, you still need to prevent them from rebelling, so repairing the embankment of the Yellow River has become a must. However, what is surprising is that in Yuan's government, there were actually 2 different opinions. One believed that it must be repaired, and the other believed that it could not. Looking at it now, this seems unbelievable. The flood of the Yellow River is not repaired. Is it necessary to allow the Yellow River to divert and drown so many people? There are too many incredible things in Chinese history, and this one is no exception. Objectively speaking, in such a matter, as far as maintaining the rule of the Yuan dynasty is concerned, those who mainly cultivate are not necessarily loyal officials, and those who oppose the cultivation are not necessarily traitors. What is the mystery of this? It won't be until 7 years later. The one who strongly advocated the revision was Tuochuo, the famous prime minister of the Yuan dynasty. He can be said to be the last famous official of the Yuan dynasty. What comes to mind is that his strong advocacy has already planted a big explosive bag for the Yuan dynasty, and the lead wire has been pulled, just waiting for the faint fire. The other is the severe plague and drought along the Huaihe River. For the Yuan government, this is relatively simple. Anyway, if you die of starvation and disease, there will be no trouble. Of course, you still have to do superficial work. The Emperor Yuan Shun, will issue an edict to relieve the disaster. The senior officials of Zhongshu province want to contact grain and silver. Of course, it is understandable to take a little bit by themselves. Disaster relief items were allocated to various roads, local administrative units in the Yuan dynasty, and local governors left some, followed by states and counties. Layer by layer, the chaff will be left in the hands of the common people. Then local officials at all levels wrote letters to express their gratitude to the emperor, and as usual, they also said some words of gratitude to heaven, and compared the historical Yao, Shun and Yutang with the emperor. The emperor saw the report and felt deeply that he had done a great deed. So I wrote a note to myself in my heart. Everyone is happy, everyone is satisfied. But the common people are not satisfied, many people are not satisfied. Zhu Chongba must be one of those extremely dissatisfied people. After the disaster came, Zhu Chongba's father starved to death on the 6th day of April, his eldest brother starved to death on the 9th day of the 4th month, on the 12th day, the elder brother's eldest son starved to death, and on the 22nd day, his mother starved to death. If this is a diary, it should be one of the most tragic diaries in the world. Zhu Chongba's wish is not too much. He just wants a home, his own children, a hard life, never bullying others, honest parents, a peaceful old age, at least something to eat. Although his family is small, the family members are harmonious and depend on each other. Although his parents are poor, they still bring Chongba surprises every day when they come back from working in the field. Sometimes it is a small bamboo dragonfly, and sometimes it is a pig's head that the landlord's family does not eat. Meat, this is Zhu Chongba's home, but now there is nothing left. Zhu Chongba's sister is already married, and the 3rd brother went to the door. Except for Zhu Chongba's 2nd brother, there are no other members of this family. 17-year-old Zhu Chongba watched helplessly as his relatives died one by one, but he could do nothing. The greatest pain in the world is this. His only way to vent is to cry, but after crying, he still has to face an important problem, to bury his parents, but there is no coffin, no shroud, no cemetery, so he can only go to the landlord Luda, beg Luda. Seeing that his father had been a tenant for him all his life, he found a place to bury his father. Luda rejected him cleanly. The reason is simple: your parents are dead, it has nothing to do with me, work for me. I also gave him food. Zhu Chongba had no choice but to cover the corpses of his relatives with straw mats with his 2nd brother, and then carried them around with the door panels, hoping to find a place to bury his parents. But although the world is vast, there are lands everywhere, but none of them belong to them. Fortunately, some kind-hearted people saw that they were really pitiful, and finally gave them a place to bury their parents. The soul wanders and finds nothing for parents, and the aspirations are desolate and ignorant. This is the emotional memory of Zhu Yuanzhang, who was able to eat enough later. Zhu Chongba didn't understand that his parents had cultivated the land all their lives, but they couldn't even burrow into the soil after death. The landlord never farms the land, but has no worries about food and clothing. Why? But he can't think about this question at this time, because he also has to eat, he wants to live. In despair, Zhu Chongba prayed to heaven more than once, from the Taoist Taishang Laojun to the Buddhist Tathagata Buddha. As long as he can know the name, the only content of prayer is to live with his parents and have a meal eat. But the result made him very disappointed, so his young heart began to become cold. He knew that no one could save him except himself. The fire of vengeance began to burn in his heart. So much pain that made him from weak to strong. In order to have food to eat, he decided to become a monk. The place Zhu Chongba chose was the nearby Huangjue temple. In the temple, he was engaged in a job similar to a long-term worker. He suddenly found that the monks treated him not much better than Lu De, except that they had no hair. These monks had land of their own. You can still get married, and if you have more money, you can open a pawn shop. But they also need someone to do chores for them. The monks there don't chant scriptures, don't worship Buddha, and don't even wipe the Buddha's golden body. These tasks are naturally done by Zhu Chongba, a newcomer who just entered the temple. Zhu Chongba has been patient, but in addition to doing these rough jobs, he also has to work as a cleaner, warehouse keeper, and oiler. Even so, he was often scolded, and when the monks were drinking and eating meat, he had to scrub the floor where the pilgrims stepped on. Every lonely night, he could only sit alone in the firewood room, looking at the sky outside the window, missing the parents who have only been with me for more than 10 years. He is already content, he can eat enough, that's enough, isn't it? However, fate seems to exercise his will. Only 50 days after he entered the monastery, due to the severe famine, all the monks had to go out for alms. The so-called begging is to beg for food. The familiar mantra of Comrade Tang saying every time is, "Wukong, you go eat some food." As the saying goes, "Wukong, you go and beg for some food." I once investigated the issue of begging, and found that Comrade Zhu Chongba was bullied even for begging. Because there are many monks, there is often a definition of the place for alms, which places are rich, and the relatives of the leaders are assigned to go, and where the places are poor, Comrade Zhu Chongba is arranged to go. You should starve to death anyway, who made you Zhu Chongba? Zhu Chongba was assigned locations in Huaishi and Hunan. This is also the main area of famine, who can turn it into him? However, from here, the god of fate smiled on him. In Yofang's life, Zhu Chongba can only walk, and has no rides to ride. He is a veritable donkey traveler. As he walked, he begged for food, crossed cities and villages, went door to door, and slept in the mountains. Every time he knocked on a door, it was a test for him, because what he faced was often just white eyes, cynicism, and Zhu Chongba. Knocking on that door may mean insult, but not knocking on that door will starve to death. Zhu Chongba has no parents, no home, all he has is a little self-esteem, but the life of begging makes him lose the last protection. You can't have dignity if you want to beg. Which is more important, the dignity of life or the pressure of survival? Yes, Zhu Chongba, only when you lose everything can you understand your own strength and greatness. Zhu Chongba is different from other beggars, and it is precisely because of the difference that he has not been a beggar all the time. While begging for food, he carefully studied the geography, mountains, and customs of Huaishi. He broadened his horizons, enriched his knowledge, and met many heroes. In fact, they are also beggars. At this time, he still has his own religious belief, Mingjiao. He believes that when darkness covers the earth, the great Maitreya Buddha will definitely come to the world. In fact, in terms of his life experience, it is hard to say whether he really believed in Maitreya. We have reason to believe that the real Maitreya in his heart is himself. But Zhu Chongba's most important achievement is, he has changed from a child who can only helplessly watch his parents die, a handyman who can only hide in the woodpile and cry softly after being bullied, into a man who can face the world with strength. Fighter against all odds. A warrior armed to the heart. A long-term difficult life can best hone a person's will. Many people can only blame others and muddle along after encountering difficulties, while others have to bow their heads in the face of difficulties, but their hearts have never yielded. Keep working hard, I believe we will be able to achieve the final victory. Zhu Chongba is undoubtedly the latter. If we say that before he came out to beg for food, he was still a young man who was at a loss, when he returned to Huangjue Temple after 3 years of wandering life, he was already a person who was confident enough to overcome everything. This is a great transformation, and many people may not be able to complete it in their lifetime. The key to transformation lies in the heart. For many of us, the heart is the weakest place, it is particularly vulnerable to being hurt, the betrayal of love, the loss of family affection, the loss of friendship, will be a heavy blow. But for Zhu Chongba, what else is unbearable? He has lost everything, and what is more painful than seeing his parents die with his own eyes and being powerless, fighting for food with the dog in order to survive, being scolded and despised by others? We have reason to believe that on a certain night of painful thinking, Zhu Chongba turned this most vulnerable place into the most powerful source of strength. Yes, even if you have an enviable appearance, well-read talents, and inexhaustible wealth, it cannot prove your strength, because a strong heart is the real strength. When Zhu Chongba was about to leave Huaishi, where he was begging, and return to Huangjue Temple, he carefully recalled the place where he had stayed for 3 years, thought about what he had gained and what he had lost here, and then packed his bags and set foot on the road. On the way home. Maybe I will come back, Zhu Chongba thinks so.